What's going on, Soul Nation? Ginger Prime here, and we're talking Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis as the event has just concluded, and they've revealed a ton of information to us regarding the open world, how they're going from MO to MMO in its titling. You can see it here on screen there in the lobby, and a seamless transition into the open world. Let's start with this as a concept. I've got chat here with me live. We're actually filming this live, so I might pause and engage with them for just a little bit. If you guys are, or you don't follow on Twitch, you can hit the link in the description below. But look at that. Look how seamless it is to go from the lobby right into the open field. Couple of facts that we need to know. While this is being labeled MMO, it does give me some Destiny 2 vibes in terms of the shared world. So when you transition seamlessly out here, you're going to be in a field with 8 other players. So it is, not the instance kind of dungeon mindset simulator that we've seen already in current PSO, but it isn't going to be like thousands of players out in the open field. Which, from a game design perspective, I think that's ultimately going to help out a lot in terms of the combat and the balance. Nothing's going to be like, hey, here's this epic boss, and then 1,000 people show up and just burn it down. But with 8 people maximum per these different instances, that's really exciting. Personally, my hope still is, and will forever be, that we see like drop in and drop out multiplayer. One of the things that really kind of I struggle with in the current version of PSO2 is the whole block system, in which that if you got a friend or somebody in your alliance, like you do have to do a lot of transferring to get to the same block to make it easy. It's not like game breaking by any means. Obviously it's worked for the last 8 years, but I'm just happy to see that PSO2, New Genesis has a seamless transition. And if I can just have a friend just pop online, hit join, and then either show up close to me or always make sure that they're matched in my instance, that personally is very exciting. They show off a lot of movement at this point. You can see here they're running around the open world, and this place is massive. It's huge. It's everything I think I've been wanting in Phantasy Star Online 2, and people in chat were saying that it's feeling like it's kind of the ARR for PSO2. So this is a huge world. You see you have the I'm stuttering, the jumping, you have the sprinting, and you also have a glide, which will be coming up here in the video itself. You've seen some of the combat. We've also known that the 4 races are coming. No word on Beastman yet. We were kind of talking about hopefully that will make its play, and they only show off the Hunter, the Force, and the Ranger at this point. And so ultimately, we got to see where like they kind of bring in a different, as they bring in classes. One of the things, if you're not aware, is this is the same game. This is you playing PSO2, and you're either choosing to go into the New Genesis 1,000 years into the future game, or playing the current game as well. So your character will transfer, but your levels won't. And so that kind of makes sense, especially that all the classes might not be there day and date with the launch of New Genesis, which is set to 2021. Overall, I from this presentation, they've shown off more combat. Let's actually jump to the combat section, because this is where it gets really exciting. You can see the different combat for the classes. Every class, they're showing off the sword, and the sword has 5 attacks, with the 5th attack being something that's akin to a photon art in terms of damage. They also show off a lot of different enemy types, which they label as dolls. One of the things, and we'll probably get to it here in a little bit in this video, is when they dive into the open world and are exploring, you'll see different tags for enemies, and you'll see T's acting as trials. And these are obviously a little bit bigger, a little bit tougher enemies, aka, I don't know how I feel personally about them calling them dolls. Hopefully that's a story narrative beat. It just seems, for me, especially with little kids, we've got dolls downstairs. I'm going to have to figure out a way to talk about that without confusing my kids, but that's just a weird dad moment with this game overall. But one of the cool things, and I don't know if you guys are going to be as excited about this that I found, is that when we're playing on the Ranger, the further you are back, there's a damage fall off to your shots, and so there is kind of going to be this kind of perfect balance range whenever doing kind of ranged combat. I think that's going to help bring some more, I guess, excitement to the class itself. At the same time, also bring a level of strategy that you have to play around with. You can be safer, but you're going to be putting out less damage. The Force didn't seem to have that damage fall off. We'll just keep jumping around the video itself. Let's see here. Okay, so perfect. What wonderful timing. Here is the Ranger in action, and you can see here as they get closer, he starts doing more and more damage with his basic shot, and he has a lot of different movement abilities overall. And so combat here, and one of the things they were saying is that he's using the slide shot right here, allows you to be able to move up, back, forward, left, and right when playing this class, and it looks great. I can't complain at all. And I'd love to know your thoughts about like at least the hunter and the ranger. Let's see if we can't jump into force, because force is so exciting, and I can't wait to tell you about what the elemental resistances do in this game. Elemental resistances, depending on the enemy type, obviously you can have different resistances, but they can create a stagger moment, meaning you want to be able to, like, you really want to focus in on the correct element so you can get that stagger, which means you can do more damage. You can freeze them. Some of the enemies they showed off, because they're only really showing fire and ice as part of the magical techniques right now. And with the fire and ice perspective, they show a lot of enemies that can be frozen or even have like a weak spot open up if you stagger them correctly using those elemental weaknesses. And that has me personally thrilled for the future of New Genesis, because that, for me, I think adds a lot of strategy, especially when it comes down to party makeup. Like, it'll be interesting to see outside of Force if other classes can either have access to magic or will be able to augment their weapons to have those types of elemental skills. We really haven't seen that in video form. But if not, that's really, in my opinion, going to make Force a required class, which it should be anyway. So that's just, that's how I feel personally about it. Now, chat's saying no Megid. Well, as far as the magic they've shown off, it's just, they just talked about Foy and Barda. So, like, at the end of the day, we ultimately will have to wait and see what other spells and how they kind of play around with it, and see how it plays out. So ultimately, I don't, legendary, we'll have to wait and see as a part of what other spells make their way. Same thing with what other classes make their way into the game. Let's go and jump a little bit ahead, because I think one of the cool things is when we talk about, they show off actually gathering. You'll see these little green things that are a part of like filling up your Resta ability. But you can jump into trees and you can basically pick the fruit. You can fly around and you can go slaughter some helpless little enemies to be able to do more gathering. It's so funny. I love the translation of it. It's like, oh, we call this gathering. It's like, yeah, I think everybody calls it gathering. So you can go and kind of farm different enemies. And then obviously with the traversal, this looks really cool what he's about to do right now. And he just slams down into the ground and obviously starts slaughtering helpless little enemies. So he's like, don't be mean, but it is a good way to both farm and to gather in the game itself. Let me see here. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit further. So this is what I'm talking about, where we're talking, here it is, seamlessly joining in with your party, and then they're going to go run around the open field, going and doing their hunts. I think this is pretty cool. Obviously there's a weird transition, so they've invited each other. They've now translated into the battlefield, and you can start to see where enemies are going to spawn on the map. They say it's random in terms of where the enemies are going to spawn. You can go run to those areas, and that's where you're going to find enemies to kill. And as we kind of like, we'll let them run. It doesn't appear to take too long for them to get to the first enemy camp here. And you can see, and they show off a wide range of enemies that excel in ranged combat, enemies that excel in sniping, enemies that excel in physical force. And again, like they said, they're calling them all kinds of dolls. Now, I'm going to put out this question to chat here at this point in the video. If there's anything I missed, please sure to make, or anything that stood out to you from this presentation that we just watched together, let me know so that way I can make sure I cover it in this video itself. I'm going to jump over into a trial, because that's where we actually see the freezing effect on some of these really cool enemies. Yeah, it's these big guys. So this is where you're going to start to see them using Barda and eventually freezing one of these big bad guys here. You can see obviously weak points are on their back, and so you're going to want to try as a team to focus in on staggering if at all possible, but obviously focusing in on the weak parts to do more damage. Them just hitting it for just a couple, and then essentially as you turn around, you obviously are doing way more damage, making yourself way more efficient. And if you're able to get that staggering, you're going to be able to do way more damage. So here is where it's showing it off. And it has a visible effect. You see the ice now being applied to their, in this, I'm going to just say tummy because I'm a dad and that's what we call it here in my household. And now that it means that you can do even more damage and even shatter that to expose an additional weak spot on the enemy itself. This is insane, and I cannot wait to go hands-on with it in 2021. So that's my takeaway from what we've seen today in in this whole presentation that they showed off. Visibly, this looks incredible. I mean, just look at the world. They're running around. You've got massive enemies. You've got lots of ways to play with your friends. And that seamless transition is something that I personally, it's such a weird quality of life thing, but I ultimately always kind of appreciate it in the long run. And that's it for this video. I'm going to be taking my kids all camping, so I don't know if you'll see me the rest of this weekend, but hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you did and you feel like earning your subscription, hit that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below. Hit like if you like to, but no pressure. I always feel awkward, especially with these call to actions, and especially doing these call of actions in a live recording. So it is what it is. Thanks for being here. Love you faces. And for Ginger Prime, my name is Brian. Hope to see you in my next video. But until then, take care. This video is sponsored by me, Ginger Prime. Hopefully you'll check out my podcast channel, Ginger Gaming Radio, which we have lots of guests, lots of great conversations, and even more highlights. Links are in the description below. Let me know what you think. Thanks.